Hey everyone, it's TJ with Avidyne. In the following brief video, we're going to be discussing the different ins and outs of the main system config page on the IFD. So to start off with, you see we've got a fuel type selection up here. So here we can set this for Jet A, Jet B, or avgas. So just depending on what type of airframe this is in, what type of fuel you use, this goes into doing some of the fuel load calculation stuff on your fuel planner pages and that kind of thing. So make sure that that's set correctly. The next setting here is your GPS select, auto or prompt. This is just like on the GNS series units. It's going to affect what type of autopilot you have installed, whether you set this to auto or prompt. Nothing different there. Follow the instructions in the installation manual and you should be all set. The next setting here, sorry about that wobbly camera, fixed wing or helicopter or high speed. So fixed wing, helicopter, or high speed. Most of them are going to be probably fixed wing unless it's a helicopter. The high speed option is there for a very select handful of aircraft in the Part 25 world. So tail number. This one is important. So based off of what your tail number is set to, so as you can see here, the unit that I'm playing around with is set to test because this is a test unit. In the actual aircraft, you're going to want to set this according to the actual tail number of the aircraft. And where this matters is this is the page that all of your options file stuff is going to reach out and look for. So when we send out an options DSF file to turn on your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and forward-looking terrain alerting and helicopter option if that applies, or radar option, or what have you, all of those option files are going to be attached to a tail number. That's why we need the tail number of the aircraft, as well as the serial number of the unit, and whether it's a number 1 or a number 2 unit when you guys are requesting those DSF files. But this is the spot where it's going to go out there and look. So if you go in and change a tail number, guess what? Your options files are going to go away. So that being said, if you guys are ever working on one of these where maybe the aircraft registration is changing, that's part of why it's in for maintenance. Keep that in mind. As soon as you guys go in here and change this to the new tail number, those options are going to go away. You'll need to contact us at techsupport@avidyne.com and we can get you a replacement options file with the new tail number. Okay. External TAWs. This one is important because of FAA regulatory stuff. So you can't have more than one terrain alerting device on board the aircraft. So if you have an external TAWs like a Honeywell EGPWS or something like that, and you want to keep that enabled, you'll want to set this to yes. And what that's going to do is that's going to turn off the terrain alerting functions within the IFD. So your FLTA alerting stuff is going to go away. You'll still have the display readouts and all of that good jazz, but it's just not going to give you the oral alerts because those should be coming from your terrain awareness box, whatever it may be. So this is important though. Okay, so make sure that if there is a fully enabled external TAWs on board, not just the IFD's TAWs, then we want to make sure we set this to yes. If we set that to no, then the IFD's FLTA, forward-looking terrain alerting stuff, will be active. Okay. This next one, we've got our weight on wheels input, and you notice it says helo in parentheses. What this does is this changes one of our gray code encoder lines to an actual weight on wheels input that would be coming from like a collective in a helicopter. So what this does is this really drives the IFD's ability for our pseudo weight on wheels output that we use with a lot of transponders and that kind of thing. In a helicopter, you can't really base that off of a GPS ground speed like you would with a fixed wing aircraft. Because your GPS ground speed could literally be 0, but you're still in flight. So you'd want to report that you're in flight. So in this case, we would want that input coming from the cyclic switch on a helicopter to let the IFD know, yes, I'm in the air, or no, I'm on the ground. Okay. Otherwise, you can ignore this for a fixed wing aircraft. checklists enabled. I don't know anybody that ever has wanted those to be disabled. TISB enunciation, again, just pretty much leave that enabled. Joystick input disabled. That applies to some fairly complex installations, and very few of them actually are going to want to use that. So for the most part, you're going to want to leave that disabled too for most general aviation aircraft. Approach roll steering. What this is for is there are some autopilots out there that prefer to listen to the roll steering ARINC 429 label for GPSS, even on approach. And the IFD does not scale that for approach accuracy. So we assume if you're using GPSS roll steering that you are using that in a en route fashion. And once you go into approach mode, you should be using true deviation. Even if it's GPS deviation, it should still be true, lateral and vertical deviation data to the autopilot. So if you have an autopilot system that prefers to listen to that roll steering label even on approach, you can actually go in there and set this to disabled, and the vast majority of those autopilots will then ignore the roll steering label on approach, and they'll use the deviation data as a backup or a default setting that way. Nav radio active is either enabled or disabled. The vast majority of these are going to want to be enabled. What this was a special request to have an option in the IFD to turn off the nav radio functionality, but still keep the GPS and COM. So it still has a VHF inside, and it still works just like normal. But instead, we've allowed them to disable the nav radio portion so that it's COM and GPS, and you can use an external nav source if you like. And that's it for the main system config page. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please contact us at techsupport@avidyne.com. And thanks for watching.